Oh, yeah, ladies and what I want to say to you, Attitude Super Duper Morning Show. We got a special guest joining us in the building. Got to say good morning to the Honorable Minister of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sports, Minister Dumbs. Good morning, Minister. How you doing?
Good morning, Super. I'm good. Morning, Spoon.
Good to have you here on the Super Duper Morning Show. You were singing along to the song. Oh, man. A lot of people are saying you're one of the most down-to-earth ministers, when it comes to, being, like I said, down-to-earth, knowing what the people, want, what they experience. You're always amongst the crowd. You're never scared to, get your hands dirty and wet. Backing out Sunday.
I knew it. Yeah, I was about to say it's just the backing out Sunday moment. Yeah, and it's so funny because I was watching it and I'm like, let me go up and just because I'm just a joker. So I went up and I said to the guy, "You should wet over there." So he pointed the hose over there, and then I was like, "Go further." He was like, "I can't go there. I have to stay in this." Mm-hmm. I didn't know that you had a perimeter you had to stay in. Yeah. So there was jurisdiction for the hose. So I was like, "Oh," he's like, "Yeah, the water can't go there. I can only go from here." And then to the left. I said, okay, cool.
12 to 3.
Yeah, 12 to 3. Yeah, exactly. So then I was like, I said, okay. I said, I'm the minister of culture. You can give me the hose. Right. I can actually, I believe I'm authorized to operate it. And he looked at me like,
I have a national decree.
And then the thing is that he looked at me. He's like, oh, you are the minister. I'm like, yeah. And then he gave me the hose. So yeah, that's how that went down. People would turn around, look at me like, the betrayal.
It was the picture, the look on your face.
Oh yeah, no, I was super excited. I was like, yeah, it was fun. Okay. But I think I mean it drives I know it drives security very crazy. Shout out to Mervin and Ramon. But I just I was in Juve too. People were shocked to see me there as well. But with security, of course. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Now speaking about fun, how is it? How has it been for the last few months within the ministry? Almost a year, right?
No? Till November, man. Give me a time.
All right, I forgot the whole thing.
6 months. Yeah.
Sorry.
I wasn't there before. I was there after.
Sure. Okay.
So it's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of clearing things that maybe decisions that were not taken, signing off on things that were maybe pending for a while. And again, this is nothing to my immediate predecessor because he had 2 ministries to handle, and justice is big enough. But yeah, there were definitely some things that were pending from even before last year January election that I just wanted to clear out, and we've been making some good headway on that, as well as seeing how we can move forward and improve things. We have the FBE review that's been going on since I came in. Is one of the first things that I signed off on to have that executed, because FBE has not been reviewed since it was rolled out, which is 2004.
Okay.
So you're talking over 2 decades, of not even seeing, hey, is this working?
Yeah.
So that data collection is done with that, and then that report should be coming to the ministry hopefully before the end of the year, and then we will see what recommendations are made, and then with that we'll be able to take some decisions on how we can move forward and improve and adapt and adjust to make sure that our teachers and our kids are not going crazy as they have been.
Right, and I know some of them last week were probably going crazy because with the whole delay of the FBE, the exams and everything. What happened in that situation?
So I have to say it's a shipping error, but not on our part, actually. So these exams are printed elsewhere in the US, and then that shipment kind of went haywire, and for some inexplicable reason, they were sent to Bonaire. Address when everything was on the same. I saw all the emails back and forth, all the airway bills, and everything looked like, they should have arrived in St. Martin, but surprise. So through discussions with Winair and also Bonaire itself, we managed to get them here relatively still on time, because I mean a 1 day delay, as opposed to what it could have been, which is a week or more. I think in the end it still worked out well. So definitely big credits to division exams, division head Yvette Halley, and them for getting on it and making sure that we could still start the Thursday.
So now the FBEs are over. So now I'm guessing the kids are just waiting for their results to see what's next for them.
Yes.
What's next when it comes to education on the whole? Because like you said, there's a lot of things, and many people have said in the past years, past administrations, it seems like education, especially education, has been pushed to the side. You know?
I think the biggest challenge that education faces, and I'm not just talking on St. Martin, this is a worldwide issue, is budget. It's investment. It's one of those investments that doesn't pay off quickly. It's very long term, but if you have patience and you continue to invest, you'll see the payoff. And I think most ministries in the region, that is what they struggle with. I just went to St. Lucia to hand over the chairmanship of the Caribbean Safe School Initiative, and to St. Lucia, so the host country, with the incoming chairman will host the ministerial forum. And yeah, listening to my counterparts from St. Lucia, from Dominica, Anguilla, and such, it's just that, can we commit to make the investment financially, emotionally, and everything else into education, and then wait for that payoff? Because you see already what not investing is bringing us. You see decline in literacy rates across the region, decline in numeracy rates, so mathematics as well, where countries used to be very prominent in that. They see a decline in their positive results for CXC math. So yeah, it requires investment, and it requires sticking to that.
Yeah. Now let's say we do get the monies that's needed, to boost up our education. What about convincing the students themselves and also parents to get involved in education? Because that's another step. Because fine, we have the money. Yeah. Now I need to get them into school. There's a lot of different distractions out there that they might be like,
Yeah, no, and I think that has to do with not just so that's not just investment, that's also with just attitude. I think you see this wave of anti-intellectualism and anti-academics that's happening worldwide, most notably for us. If I look at the US, it drills down, and it really does. I went to most of the town halls from the FBE review, the first one in Dutch Quarter and the rest thereafter, and you had parents that were basically saying, well, if my child looks at even on island leadership, for example, you look at parliament, they're like, I don't actually have to go to school. And that is the attitude that many young people have. Like, I can make it to the top of the top without having to ever, crack a book. And I think that's a bad approach to have, of course. So for me, it's about also setting that example that formal and informal education is very important, because informal education is also what we don't talk about, like the continuous learning. And you have a lot of parents that will learn to a point and just kind of stick there and don't want to, see new things or anything like that. But I think overall, from my school visits at the primary level, I think kids are very much into school. Their level of excitement is different, but we have to make sure that continues throughout. And that will come with teacher trainings. That will come with more parental involvement. Also for private sector to recognize that you can't scream about receiving a poorly prepared workforce, but not want to allow parents time to be involved in their kids' education. As a manager, I used to say, okay, report card day is this day. You can leave early to go to get your kids' report card. Because you have to be able to stimulate that participation. One of the main complaints from the school visits was that parents were not as involved. Not all parents, of course. You have some that are almost too involved, but definitely that is something that we still struggle with. And I know that it's tough. You work in however many jobs or so, but we had that when we were in school as well. And those parents would still find a way to be involved.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah. And I know the ministry there, you guys are doing some things, especially when it comes to getting the kids involved, especially when it comes to literacy. And I know you have a storytelling or poetry.
Yeah, so no, it's the Dame Ruby Butte National Short Story Contest. It's the first edition. We're going to be kicking off the promotion in about a week, and the intention is that over the summer you can work on your story. There will be a theme. All of that will be announced as well. And then over the summer you work on it, you submit, and then we have a panel of judges that are going to read them out and read them over. Pick the winners, and then on September 8th, which is World Literacy Day, we're going to announce the winners.
Oh, my birthday.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, happy birthday.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about school safety. That's also been a topic that many people have been concerned about. We've seen, the current uptick in school fights, and now even hearing about students carrying weapons or being found with weapons in schools and on school buses as well. Does that have the ministry's attention, and what is your focus, and how do you guys plan to tackle that?
No, it does. And like I mentioned earlier, one of the Caribbean Safe School Initiative that I went to St. Lucia for and participated in that forum. Actually, this forum is the first time that bullying and school violence was really on the agenda. So normally the SCSSI focuses on readiness of schools for disasters, man-made and natural, fire, earthquake, etc. And then this time around, they talked about, how do we combat school violence? So essentially, the reasons why school violence exists, we have to understand that you have socioeconomic pressures at home that maybe trickle down onto the kids. Parents will take that out on kids. Kids will take that out on other kids.
Right.
You have bullying that is, for the most part, also perpetuated by what they learn at home, what they learn on TV, what they learn even from their teachers. And that, I think, is part of the thing that we don't want to talk about. A lot of what you see carried out in school is learned behavior.
Yeah.
I heard it at home, so I'm going to bring it into the schoolyard, and then it escalates, and here we are.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's for all of us to kind of not just force our students to reflect and be better, but to look in the mirror and see how we are perpetuating and exacerbating school-based violence. You know, what are you saying in the household that is making its way into the classroom? You have students that have been bullied for they're perceived to be poor. They're, you know, or your shoes ain't right, whatever. Even with dress codes, that still happens. Your ethnicity, where you come from, your accent, and I mean, I don't want to pretend and act like this wasn't there when we were in school, because it absolutely was. But I think social media has also made it that, you know, it is much more in your face. I think sometimes, well, how would high school have been if we'd had Facebook? You know, a wild time. And I think that it's important to recognize that, and yeah, I think to really think about what are kids being bullied for, you know, whether it's their accent, where they're from, their sexual orientation, anything like that. It's happening, and you have to, as adults, first recognize that, and what example are you setting, and how does that make its way into the schoolyard?
Because I've heard many stories too that when you talk to the adults or when you call them into school, you see their behavior as well towards authorities.
I'll be honest with you. Teachers told me on a school visit at some schools, I won't say which schools, but they have told me that they have been attacked by parents when trying to simply communicate that a student may be struggling with something, or that a student needs extra help in a subject, or that a student has some behavioral concerns that, you know, has the school a bit worried. And the teachers have been spit on. They have been physically attacked. Parents launching themselves across the table, and I can't even, I mean, at that point in time, you say what you want about training, whether you're a teacher or bus driver or whatever, you're going to defend yourself. You understand? And I think that's really important to recognize as well. So it's really about a holistic approach to it. I have to say that Student Support Services Division has been doing a good job on the readiness of schools when it comes to the CSSI agreements. And I'm looking forward to continue to work with them to see how we can address this a bit more in depth. I know the Minister of Justice and I have also had a conversation about how we can kind of collaborate on that, addressing school violence. And further to that, so it was that justice, and then just generally training of teachers and such. At the ministerial forum, I learned that in Guyana, they've started not teaching how to bully, but teaching bullying in the sense of it's like a subject. Like you learn what is bullying, what is acceptable behavior in society, what is not. And maybe it has to come to that, you know, you have to really outline for them, no, this is not cool. No matter what you see on TV, no matter what you see these, wannabe TikTok influencers talk about or do, like that is not acceptable behavior in society.
Absolutely. Update on what's going on with the students, especially those in Florida. I know that was a situation that blindsided pretty much everybody. After Trump came up, his administration came up with some.
So I mean, the Florida decision was the Florida Board of Governors, which, you know, again, if you've ever gone to school in Florida, you kind of know we've been heading in this direction for a while. Trump is at a different level, of course. I saw the news of what he just told Harvard they can't allow international students, which is a very big part of Harvard's student population. But ultimately, the schools in question that we have students at most have said they're going to grandfather in the existing agreement as much as possible. TSC until December 2026, that's Tallahassee State College. FSU, I believe, till graduation, and then FAMU until summer C semester 2025. But the ministry itself has already taken steps, and we are going to be providing out of state tuition allowance to the students so that they can at least cover costs. However, on housing, as I mentioned in my communication to the students, you know, there will be an expected contribution from parents, which to even get the F1 visa, you have to be able to prove that you can sustain the cost of school in the event your students' study financing falls through. So that is also something I just want to make clear before people say I'm going to cost people money and I didn't tell them about it. But to qualify for F1 student visa, you need to be able to prove that you can. My bigger concern with the students, and I've also cautioned them about this, is actually immigration. You see reports all the time of students getting their F1 visas canceled, visas in general being canceled, and so that to me is something that I've cautioned the students about. To also for parents to encourage their student to let their presence in the United States be known to their nearest Dutch embassy or consulate. That is something that I did when I went to Florida. It not just helps in this scenario, but in the event that your passport is coming off expiration or you lose your passport, it's also good that the embassy is aware, and because that is the route that you have to take to be able to get your passport back.
Yeah. So moving forward, at least for now, you recommend. I think you recommend the students to find alternate.
Yeah, they
schools.
can. If you're so, for example, with TSC, if you're not graduating by December 2026, you should start thinking of where you are, where you could possibly head off to. But I think that the out-of-state allowance should allow them to continue for a time. And I mean, it might be that you don't want to remain, in what is becoming a more increasingly hostile state of international students, and you might want to deviate. We also have a few MOUs that have been under discussion with other institutions more to the north of the U.S., and that's something that we will be hopefully finalizing within the coming months, and then of course communicate that out to everybody, high school students, etc. But if you're a high school student that's graduating next year, I would say if Florida was your goal, maybe not.
Yeah, and hopefully, at least in your mind, this situation is temporary, and hopefully it can be fixed or maybe overturned by some type of judicial.
Might take a term, might take a next election. I don't know. Because at the end of the day, this is a federal concept trickled down to state level. Governor DeSantis has not made it a secret that this is the direction that he wants to go in. So that's Florida. At the end of the day, it's their board of governors that made that decision. So.
Okay, all right. When it comes to the ministry, the main focus is education, but you also have culture, youth, and sports that fall under that. Give us a brief synopsis of what's going on within each of those subdivisions.
So with culture, we have Flag Day coming up. So that's plans for that are underway. It's going to be on the other side of the hill this time. Normally it's here. We watched on Soccer Garden. We went to Marie Genevieve de Weaver School last time. So the intention is to move it to the other side of the hill. The Seventh-day Adventists, Sister Regina, Lionel Connor School is going to be participating. And then that's on the culture side. Of course, we have St. Martin Day coming up as well in November, which the Dutch side is hosting this year. So hopefully trying to make that also a pretty big deal. And on the youth side, a lot of that ties into education already that we've spoken about, but there are things that are being rolled out in collaboration with VSA, the National Child Protection Policy and Program. And on the sports side, we have already begun looking into reviving the discussion to move the legislation forward for the sports fund. That was something that former acting minister Lewis spoke about in budget last year prior to my swearing in. And ultimately, it was that legislation was not really pushed forward. It kind of just went quiet after the January election. So that's something that we're reviewing now. And hopefully that will be able to generate some cash for sports. I had a meeting with the St. Martin Sports Federation the other day. So I think we have a good vision forward of how things can go. And it's really about professionalizing sports, building some structure, because it's a lot of times you see here that organizations or persons will ask government for money, subsidy, etc., but don't want to report. That reality cannot continue. Has caused a lot of the fiscal issues that we see in government today. So it's really about building that structure and supporting as well that people get accustomed to these new rules. Or at least not the new rules, but the enforcement of the rules that were always there. To make sure that they report on their spending, because without that, we don't know if you're getting too little or too much money. So we have to be able to adjust, because at the end of the day, it is public money, and we have to be careful with it.
Yeah. Now, speaking about money for sports, I remember, if I could remember clearly, the predecessor minister Samuel, he had an initiative when it comes to every time you purchase a fuel.
That's it. That's the legislation. That's the sports fund.
Okay.
So yes, that initiative was kicked off, but there needs to be legislative changes to make sure that that everything is above board, that it's legit, and that it can be collected. There has to be a legal basis for it. So that's something that we're working on. And
so far, to your knowledge, nothing has been collected as yet. or you don't know?
I have heard that something was collected,
Oh,
but
okay.
I'm waiting on. Of course, that is Taya that we have to collaborate with on that. So once I go in today, because I'm running double duty this week, Minister ECYS and Deputy Vrami. So I'm going to basically follow up on that because it is a conversation that we've been having with Taya as well to make sure that we are all on the same page.
Yeah. Speaking about being Deputy Minister of Vrami and also Tia, this is where you guys might have to have a little bit more discussion today. The sarcasm over the weekend. I don't know if you've seen it. How do you know how we're going to deal with that? I mean, I know it's initially not your ministry, but it is something that you also still have to follow.
Other Minister Gums, Patrice Gums, has, I believe, as someone who cares very much about the environment, this is something that we have talked about in between the two of us. I'm not sure what the plan is. I know that we've talked about even collaborating with a friend side because they do have some of the machinery that can be used to scoop it off the beach and such. When it's in the water, it's kind of
difficult to get it. You have to wait for
and
it to
that's nature basically. That's where we're at. That's global warming and climate change and everything else kind of wrapped up into one unfortunate bundle. So it's in terms of when it is in the water and just kind of banked up, I'm not certain. I saw the pictures of French cul-de-sac over the weekend, which that's definitely getting worse. So much luck to them in managing that. But for us, I think it's how can we collaborate, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel. If one side is doing something, I'm a firm believer that maybe we can just piggyback with each other and work
together. Not just for November 11th, right?
Not just for November 11th, yeah.
All right. Let's talk about teachers. I know, I think recently civil servants were given, I think something was changed within legislation for them to get
the indexation.
Yes. What about the teachers? I know some of them still have been complaining about.
So the issue you have there is that subsidized, and I was surprised to hear members of opposition who were architects of this arrangement ask about this, but subsidized schools when they receive the payout, it is to them to pay the teachers to incorporate it. It goes to the school board, and then the school board has to dish it out. For public schools, it's very easy because those are our schools. So when it happens, it happens directly. But when it is paid to school boards, and I've said this last year as well, and I'll repeat it again. You are responsible for ensuring that your teachers receive it and receive any increment, benefit, etc. that is incorporated into your subsidy. Yeah, we're not HR for subsidized school teachers. That's really the distinction.
Right.
So your HR has to handle that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any thoughts or ideas when it comes to, because of course the school year is going to come to an end, and then it's going to reopen back, and that's when a lot of the teachers go through the same things when they basically have to go online and, for lack of better words, beg for money to at least equip the classrooms, get materials for the kids, get materials for themselves. Have you thought about creating some type of fund that helps or assists teachers when it comes to at the beginning of the school year to get materials for the classes and students?
That's something that we could consider. That is definitely something that we can look into and consider. The reality is resources are limited. And again, I'm not trying to make excuses and say that because it happens in country A, it's okay to happen in St. Martin. I know nobody ever feels that way. But this is something that I have quite a few teachers in my network that I went to school with, that are my family members, and everywhere. The Netherlands, the United States, is the same old struggle every year. How do I get supplies for my class? And this again is part of the investment. So I'm hoping that something like that could be a collaboration between the ministry and private sector. But I also like structural stuff. So if it's not that you're going to give this year and then that's it. So I really like to see how we can build structural agreements where every year there is a contribution, whether it's per business or whatever, and that is something that can be grown. That is a fund that can be grown and maintained,
and do it in a way that's ethical as well. Because I personally have an issue. I've seen it in the past where a business says, you know what, I'm going to donate to this school, but then they make it all about the business and less about the actual, giving to the school. Everything's just plastered with their logo and everything, and I'm like, okay.
Yes, exactly. And I don't want that either. Like no pencil cases with 80% off Cuban links going out to 6-year-olds. Is not something that I necessarily want to see. So that right there is not something I would agree to. But definitely that is something that is ethical, and because at the end of the day, it's not great that you have to donate to a teacher to get supplies. It's none of that is normal. You understand? So, and I think we need to also get away from that. Like I myself, as a member of parliament in the past, have given to schools, have given to teachers, but never have you seen that on Facebook.
Right.
Because to me, it's embarrassing that as a member of parliament, you have to ask me for help to buy pencils.
Yeah.
And I think that to me, so a little bit more class and a little bit more shame, I think, because there are bigger issues at hand and we need to focus on fixing the bigger issues.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking about fixing, what about Sister Marie Laurence?
No, so the demolition tendering for that should be wrapped up by June, July. And then the construction tendering goes out for rebidding. And I think this week or next week, we have actually a World Bank mission to talk about that particular project. So that's FRLP, that's Sister Marie Laurence, the library, and Charles Leopold Bell. And then that should be when we get a more comprehensive update. But I think by end of the year, we should be able to see the demolition completed. And then the construction mobilization beginning to then kick off, because FRLP has a deadline of March 2027.
Yeah.
But of course, I'm on everybody to make sure that it happens sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely something that has my attention every day.
And any thoughts or consideration about building another, let's say, high school in another location? Maybe even another primary school.
Yeah.
Charlotte Brooks, and they've been waiting for some.
So the reality is government doesn't build buildings for subsidized schools.
Right.
That's unfortunate, and I've communicated this as well to the board. And I think that's something that is also important to remember, is that subsidized schools are partially subsidized for a reason. They have the opportunity to find funding elsewhere.
Okay.
The public schools don't have that opportunity. So I always encourage all their boards to check in and see where you can maximize and participate in funding opportunities that are not just government.
Right.
So ultimately, but there has been in the past discussion about another public high school, which is our responsibility to build. But that's something that is not a priority discussion right now. There's a whole lot more happening that first we need to kind of iron out, and then focus on how do we then move forward with that project.
All right, we have the Honorable Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports, Melissa Gum. Thank you for joining us today on the Super Duper Show. Anything else you want to add, or just reiterate about the upcoming short story?
Yeah, no. So just to keep an eye out for parents, it's ages 12 to 14 are going to be the participants. When that promo goes out, I'll also be maybe popping up at your school. To talk about it with no warning, because that's what I like. And to just encourage kids to get into that. And, there's going to be a lot more coming out as well to develop literacy, and especially literacy on the island, because it's, as someone who comes from private sector, it's more important than you may think. Every class I visit, I ask, do you guys like to read? Sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. I also have to say that our kids are generally very dramatic. I love it, because one will say reading is such a chore. I'm like, oh, is it? You're 7. What do you know? But no, definitely very interested to see the feedback that it gets and the participation. I'm hoping that we can make it a good one and continue it for a few years after.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Minister,
yes,
for joining us once again.
Thank you.
We have one more question for you, which is the question of the day, facebook.com/laser101. How many pairs of Crocs do you own?
0.
Actually.
Well, no, 1. Sorry, I have a pair of Croc slippers.
Okay.
Yes, the slippers. Right. I'm not into the full Croc sports mode nonsense. No, I'm like, no, guys. So
that'd be nice, like for a sports day. The Ministry of Education, Culture.
My ankles would shatter.
Right.
In those, if I had to try to run in Crocs. Right. I saw people in Crocs in Juve. I said, how are you alive? How are you walking?
That's a different level. Yeah.
All the years but between basketball, rugby, and everything, no, my bones can't take it, my guy.
So you can't see right now, Raul Village, the Crocs 400.
Absolutely not.
Thank you, Minister, for joining us.
Thank you.
With the good work over there at the ministry.
Thank
Let's take
you.
a break, and when we come back, more action on the Super Duper Morning Show, so stay tuned.